Matteo is with us. Fantastic. So what I'm really thrilled to announce is that Matteo Vignoli, who is the editor of the CERN Journal of Experimental Innovation, has actually flown especially to be with us and conduct this session. Matteo will introduce a little bit the journal, and then also Andrew will introduce a little bit the topic, because we are guest editing this journal, the publication that will be next summer on co-creation, therefore very topical for a lot of the work that's happening here. So a round of applause for Matteo Vignoli.
Thank you, Michela. Hello, everybody. Very pleased to be here. Before just starting, I would like you to do one thing, which is critical. Not to step into the corner of the table, but just come in front and take a seat into those chairs. Do you want to do that for me? Yeah, some people already, did it, so a big round of applause for them. And in the back, please join us, on this round. Thank you very much. Grazie. Thank you for the trust. I know how hard it is to be exposed. Yeah, you can. Yeah, keep it there. Wonderful. Brava. Thank you. We need it for a bit later. So just for now is to create a more welcome setting for the discussion we're going to have on co-creation later on. But before that, a few words on the agenda of today. We have 1 hour and a half for this session, which is 20 minutes as a start. We're going to introduce the journal, CERN Idea Square. I don't know if you've been there, but I'm going to lead you through what it is. And then, we are going to start a discussion with the fishbowl format. So that's why there are, chairs here and also somebody there. So, start thinking about, your stories about co-creation. If you ever work with somebody which, was different than you, then you are part of this gang that is, willing to share their, stories, ideas, methods in this special issue that we are hosting. And then we're going to have, 10 minutes wrap up at the end, where we are going to, share some practicalities, but also have an idea of what was the, end ultimate, let's say, idea that we were discussing together. Okay. Of course, there is a chat. Somebody's monitoring the chat for engagement for people online. Hi, if you watch here from everywhere. Great. So, Idea Square is the innovation space at CERN. Was created, already 10 years ago, because we celebrated last year the 10th anniversary. And it was a response to a strategic, move that CERN did after discovering the Higgs boson. Let me put it as a small story. It's not really all true what I'm saying, but get the vibe. When CERN discovered the Higgs boson, they went to European Commission and said, "Yeah, guys, we discovered the Higgs boson. We're going to get the Nobel Prize for it, maybe." Then Higgs got it, but it was CERN that discovered the Higgs boson. And we're very happy of this discovery. And then you said, "Great, you really great achiever. You did something very few people in science do. You discover what you were meant for, right? So we can shut up funding, right?" They were like, "What? Can you repeat this?" Yeah, you discovered what you were meant to. And actually, it's a standard model confirmed. So there's no much more to do. So we can, close funding. So we are happy. We give funding to something else. And they were like, actually, no, there's a lot of new things that, we should discover. Actually, we should build a higher, a bigger, ring. And we contributed a lot with society because we were able, thanks to our, research, to give to people something, as fundamental as internet, right? But not only that, we also discovered, stuff that is now in all solar panels and stuff that are, everywhere, like in hospitals. So we were able to, give back to society. And then they said, yes, you did, but kind of like as a side effect. You were not, really intentional in doing this. We need you to, if we finance, the new, let's say, developments, to be more intentional, to have a better outlook. Society should know more about what CERN does. Okay. So with this in mind, the CERN management said, yeah, maybe we should be more intentional. So Idea Square was the first experiment of CERN to have an outlook in society, to take what CERN does and put it more out there. Okay, it's a harbor, is a connecting point. Okay, with all the other university. Of course, they're already connected with most university in the world, but they are more connected into physics. Okay, but other disciplines, other ideas, but also society, government, companies, students. So Idea Square was this first prototype. And then the prototype was quite successful, and then they decided to build much more. If you go to CERN now, if you went to CERN 15 years ago, there was just flat land and a lot of stuff underground. Right now, there's like what is called the Science Gateway, which is a huge building that is actually pointing to Geneva and France, and is actually making CERN much more visible because it's a connector to society. And Idea Square was the first prototype of this initiative, and it's still there, part of this big investment CERN is doing to transfer things to society. In this experiment, I was part of the Idea Square team since the beginning, and then we were like, okay, maybe it's not only about innovation and about technology that was developed in basic science or deep tech transferred to society. Maybe it's also something more about the culture, about the methodology of CERN. So that's why we thought that we could disseminate much more than just the technology. CERN is the biggest experiment society has ever done, but it's also a unique place where 6,000 people from all over the world and that are living there, plus other 6,000 that are distributed across the globe, are actually collaborating on one single thing. Okay, there's not such a experiment in science or in society as big as CERN, with so many nationalities based on just 4 pages constitution. Okay, so we thought maybe there is a space also to dream something bigger, and this was to create that's what we do, to create a journal that would be the space for disseminating the experimental mindset of CERN, where people could actually write about things that they didn't dare to think, to share the unthinkable, to share what are their experiments in science, in society, and bring this experimental mindset outward. I have to say that if you are in social science, a lot of people are looking at society more like a biologist would look at nature, right? That's what I observe. That's what happens, and then I am extracting the laws from what is happening in society. We would like to bring a little bit more the experimental nature and how experiments are done at CERN, which we challenge nature, we challenge society in order to understand what happens. That CERN is putting so much energy into collisions that new matter is created, and that's what we would like to see in universities around the world, also in other disciplines, where academics but also people in society are able to, thanks to this mindset, to create things that were not there before. Okay, So that's CIJ, and it's an experiment in its own sense, because it's a new journal, and of course, you might say, yeah, of course, every journal is new, but in these days where academia is all about numbers, publications, and impact factor, creating a new journal is a challenge in itself. But CERN was up to it because they really wanted to raise the impact they are doing in society. And so that was established. And I cannot see here, but this is the editorial team, the editorial board. I'm the editor-in-chief, and I was part of the editorial board since the beginning. Sorry, black is not really the right color. So a few years ago, after 6 years, 5 years and a half of publication, we thought that it was good to have a manifesto. And that's what I'm proposing to you, which is what we stand for. So CIJ first is bold. We'd like to have unconventional research that is actually advancing the boundaries of society. And that could be both in the outcome of the research, but also in the methodology of how you engage with those kind of big topic. The idea is that is an interdisciplinary journal. We thought that was really important because a lot of times research is interdisciplinary, so you work across discipline, but then you publish in your own discipline. So I work with a physician to advance some practice in a hospital. If I'm a computer scientist, I'm going to publish my part in my journal, and the physician is going to publish his part in his journal. And that's kind of how it is, because I am rewarded only for what comes to my single discipline. So in a way, there's very little space for publishing the whole thing. And why we were doing this, and how hard it was to collaborate together, maybe with a big collaboration. That CERN rewards also papers with a lot of names, because it's important to account for every contribution. Third point, CIJ is open. It's what we call diamond open access. So it's totally funded by CERN, and there's no fee to publish. And on top of that, copyrights remain with the authors. They can do anything with their paper and their data afterwards. So it's a very very open journal. Then it's connecting. So the idea that CIJ wants to create connection with different people. So we organize every year some forums and some meetings, and also Idea Square, which is a physical space at CERN, is open for all the contributors and authors. So if you publish there, then you can always come to Idea Square to work there. It's like an open space so that people can connect with each other. It's experimental because we are pushing new ways of doing research where new artifacts are created. A lot has been, especially in a European project, but also across academia, a lot has been experimental. But then when you publish, it seems that you need to kind of justify what the experiment was and why you experimented, because the experimental mindset is not yet available in all disciplines. It's useful. So the idea that what we publish is actually good for others, and that it's also possible to replicate studies to understand what other people are doing, and that's a name of the journal. So it's not about some theoretical things that remain only with the author. The idea is this. And then the one that I like the most, CIJ is a place for misfit. People that, especially in some part of their research, they do not really belong to you know, somewhere. So this is a place where you find home. And this is because when you are in CERN, you understand that you know, it is a place for misfit people that feel that their contribution is advanced, is new, but it's also unconventional. Like this is a place that welcome this kind of, you know, bold ideas. Sometimes you know, people say, if I have a very interesting idea, a very interesting research, but I have very little data to demonstrate, I cannot publish this thing anywhere because people look for confirmation. But we know that early stage, early signals, you know, are also interesting per se. So we also welcome, you know, papers that maybe have, you know, something unique or peculiar, but you know, they're looking for, you know, collaboration to build a data set. That CERN is doing this and has been doing this for the fundamental laws of physics, and we think that that can work also everywhere. So, theory and practice, it's about experimentation, and you know, we open to every discipline. You know, we had the publication on art and music and innovation. We had publication on, you know, architects that want to design spaces. We had publication from, you know, mathematics, from physicians. We had, you know, really a diverse range of contributors with the unique aim to advance the understanding of, you know, innovation and you know, entrepreneurship and all these connected experimental themes. It's of course double-blind review as quantitative and qualitative options, and the other point is that we like short articles because we would like, you know, these articles to be read, and it's very important that you know, we kind of, you know, condense what we want to say in a very short time. A lot of people are writing on CIJ something which is early stage, and then they go on with their research, and then they publish with maybe other more focused journal. Or another approach is that, you know, maybe they have a research which is a joint research. They write together what the project was really about, and then each one takes a piece. And I'm writing about the IT structure, I'm writing about the societal impact, I'm writing about the innovation part, and you know, but there's not one place where this project actually comes together. I already said that. The other point is that you know, the reviewers and the editor are actually for this type of, you know, interest that the paper could spark. So it's more about this than, you know, a gazillion of data that makes, you know, a very small contribution. Yeah. So we usually have a fast publication cycle, you know, 4 months, early stage bold research, and the idea is that this is the start of the conversation. That was the initial point. Then we achieved some result. We were indexed in Scopus 3 years ago. We're gonna you know, be indexed in Web of Science next year. And then we also have CERN, Idea Square, media, and you know, news that are actually pushing the articles into society. Okay. So this is why CIJ. I want to just, you know, reinforce that copyright remains with the authors. So CERN do not retain copyright of your work, so you can do anything with it later on, and that you know, can be published in any other journal. We don't mind. Okay, then it's time for the special issue. Andrew and Andrea.
Testing. Okay. So I don't have a slide deck. I have a fountain pen. So I'll leave that up on the screen. So for those who don't know me, I'm Andrew Dubber. I'm a senior researcher at the Industry Commons Foundation. I'm also director of something called MTF Labs, which comes into our story in a moment. But this is the official launch of the call for a special issue of the CERN Idea Square Journal for Experimental Innovation, or CIJ, specifically on co-creation. Now, co-creation, and particularly, I'm really grateful that the word misfit is in the manifesto, because that's where I come in. So my professorship title was Professor of Music Industry Innovation. And so I would get people saying, oh, so you're a musician. Not a musician, can't play the instruments. Oh, industry, you're business studies. No, I'm not business studies. Oh, so you're a technologist then. Yeah, I can't really build you things either, but where I operate in is in the gaps between those things. It's how those things are connected. And so all of my work as a professor and as a researcher has always been about experimentation. It's been about collaboration. It's about bringing together artists with scientists, academics with industry, putting them all in the room together, and delivering grand challenges and getting people to make things together, and then learning what happens. You sort of callously could describe it as, what happens if I press this button, is my research methodology. And so putting together experiments, getting people to work together in different ways, that's where I'm coming from. So an issue about co-creation is really important to me. And a lot of the ideas of this, and Michaela can take obviously a lot of credit for this, because she founded this community that started life 13 years ago as Music Tech Fest, which was about bringing together musicians and artists with technologists and industry, with academic researchers and scientists from different domains. It started to attract other areas, other domains, other industries, other academic researchers. We developed a methodology called the Labs, MTF Labs, which was a 5-day event that this is loosely modeled on in some way, but with a particular framework that was about giving people grand challenges, getting them to work together, and making new things. So the co-creation thing was a really super important part of that, and that it was across domains was really interesting. So you would get neuroscientists and oceanographers working with DJs and choreographers, for instance, to create projects. And so this sort of intersection and experimentation was central to that. So I am now one of 5, I believe, co-editors of this special issue on co-creation, which will almost certainly include some of these experiments in where music tech meets oceanography, or where cryptography meets with theatre. Those sorts of things are really interesting, but there are lots of things that can come under the idea of co-creation that we're interested in. The journal itself is about innovation, and particularly experimental innovation. So we're interested in ways in which co-creation leads to innovation, but we're also interested in ways in which we can innovate with co-creation, do different kinds of co-creation. And so there are different types of articles that can be written for this, and Matteo will come in and explain a little bit more about this, but it isn't simply about very deep dive, very long, very intense academic journal articles. There's also room for methodology papers, which could be quite a bit shorter, which is, this is what we did, this is how we did this is what worked about it, and this is, you could try this for yourself. And I've heard some fantastic examples. Since we first started talking about this, I've had people come to me and say, well, we actually did a co-creation thing around ping pong, and we brought people together to play ping pong with each other to co-create together. And so these different sort of things that you might not necessarily have thought of, and it's that oh moment that Matteo references, which is quite interesting. But the reason that we wanted to launch it here in the context of the Lumen and Graphia IPL is that's kind of exactly what's going on here. There are specific things, and we're going to be talking a lot more about co-creation and co-design as the next days come along. But just the fact that we are in the room together, just the fact that we are working together from these different disciplines to create something, that we're all working towards more or less the same thing, or more or less the same ideals, but coming at it from such different perspectives, that there is something in that. And we wanted to launch this IPL, at this IPL, this call for papers. So I don't want to go too much into this, but I just wanted to flag up co-creation for community, co-creation for policy, co-creation for education, co-creation for technology. There are all sorts of different avenues that you can come to in this. But this, to me, is the answer to a lifelong problem I've had, which is about not having a short answer to the question, what is it exactly that you do? And to have this to point to and go, it's a bit like this. These are the fantastic people that we've got obviously working with us for co-creation. Andrea is in the room. She can answer questions about it. In fact, I may call on her to do exactly that. Where are you, Andrea?
I'm
Fantastic. Andrea, do you want to go into a little bit more detail about the call and what's in it and what sorts of things that we imagined? Because there's a bit of a shopping list in there, but there's stuff, and with you specifically as a social sciences and humanities researcher, there is a particular link that you have into this. So.
Yeah, exactly. Hi, I've introduced myself to some of you, but not nearly many. So my name is Andrea Dankic. I'm the latest addition, thank you, that's the right word, to the ICF team. My background is in, well, humanities really, and now lately social sciences, so I have a PhD in ethnology. But I'm a music researcher, I would say, music / qualitative methods / ethnographic work. So I was very, very happy when I was invited to be a part of this. And maybe we can just scroll down. So co-creation has really been, I would say, my interest from a research perspective. So looking at, in my case, so different music communities, particularly in a Swedish context, looking at Swedish hip-hop. Maybe, I don't know if any of you have heard of Swedish rap recently in connection to maybe organized violence, because that's something that we, in a Swedish context, I would say, talk a lot about. But my research hasn't been about that so much, but more in relation to how is music actually created? What is needed to create music? And what I have been looking at is the connection between, in the context of hip-hop. So in a way, you could say genre-specific, but not necessarily. I would say this implies in many different artistic settings, where identity and different methods, different aspects of practice, all are combined. So that's kind of my background. So creativity is really, I would say, a center part of, besides maybe, some would say maybe identity politics as well. And then also methodologies. How can we look at what is actually happening? So when I have done my research as a participant observer in, for example, music camps for girls, I have been interested in, so how do they go about to actually make the music, and what does the music mean to them, and why are they even doing it in the first place? So I have been thinking a lot about how we can go about thinking of co-creation methodologies in different ways. But I would say at the time, I maybe didn't really I didn't use the word co-creation. So I think that's also what's interesting about the term co-creation, that I think it has a lot of different meaning to different people, which is something I think we will be discussing here. But going into different themes, I've mentioned methodologies, creative processes, and then also co-creation across domains, which I think is really in the center of why we are here. We are here with different projects. We also hear from industry, from academia. And I mean, this whole event is a co-creation event. Politics of co-creation. Power is also something I have been looking at a lot. And ethics and governance was also something mentioned during the previous workshops today. Co-creation with AI. It is kind of embedded in this, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's very difficult to have a conversation about anything these days without having a conversation about AI. And so it's almost mandatory that it's included. But the conversation about co-creation with AI rather than simply delegating to AI, I think is the point with this. How do you work with a different kind of intelligence that isn't a human intelligence? And I think that's, for me, that's the interesting avenue to pursue.
Just wanted to remind, because Andrea did this wonderful thesis on a subject of Swedish hip hop, and what she identified was the co-creation within civilian communities that actually prop up the artist. And perhaps I'm not using the right language the way you describe it beautifully in your book, because she published a book about it. But that was a very interesting thing, because when you talk about co-creation, you think, oh, musician with musician, or you think that it happens professionally or semi-professionally because people are budding celebrities in the hip hop here. But actually, what she identified was that it's not even identifying strictly the fan base, but there is just this. There are clusters of basically social groups that tend to build the persona of the musician, particularly in hip hop, which is of course a grassroots genre, and that was just to me really interesting. So this is when we talk about, there are really interesting takes on what it means to co-create. You can be a civilian who is part of, actually, when you drill down to people, how they look at their professional life, they tend to be segregated into these little boxes professionally. And yet, a few years back, we did a huge MTF in Sweden where we invited women in technology to actually present themselves as multifaceted personalities who are actually, and I don't mean just family maker and technologist, but actually, people who were, I don't know, Imogen Heap being a blockchain technology specialist as well as an international artist, people like Robin, who actually supports girls in technology, people like Danica Kragic, who's famous professor of AI and robotics, who also is, well, she calls herself a dressmaker, but she's actually a fashion designer in her spare time, and she talks about how that informs her work. So that we're not monodimensional. And so the idea, I mean, we almost like co-create with ourselves in this way. So, I mean, I'm looking at really interesting alternative takes on what it means. What does co-creation mean? Yeah.
Just a question, because I see this is one of the subject there, the co-creation with AI. But I think if you look at the co-creation, what has been done for the last 8 years in co-creation, and what is happening in the last 1 year, I think it's completely change of, because each of you, I would say, I have no doubt that each of you co-create with AI things, music, because it's as easy as that, graphics, your contribution to whatever. I don't believe any of you are not doing that, okay? So I think I would say that if you want to have a thinking of co-creation now, you should, because one thing is collective co-creation, but each of you already is doing this collective, because the AI has knowledge of already collective co-creation, and I think this I think does not cover everything of the possible co-creation ways, but I would really put it in a different perspective from the beginning.
Of course, I think that actually raises something really interesting.
You want to sit here?
But Martin, you're going to sit here, please.
No, later.
Okay, so what I was going to say is, I know, I just want to respond to that really super quickly, which is, that's a phenomenal take on it, is that the phenomenon of co-creation and how that has changed is absolutely fair game for a journal issue like this. Suzanne?
Sorry. Do you want to get into the format?
I think this is already happening, but let Suzanne respond to that.
Yes.
I'll finish off what I was going to say, then we'll do the format.
Okay. No, it's just to follow up on what you said, because I think it's a good question that you ask, and maybe we can ask. So there is this question of co-creation that we all practice. I think in our everyday life, at least if we are there, this is what we do. But maybe we can go a bit with a step further with collective thinking. I've been part of several schools of thinking and collective thinking, and I think it's a bit, it's going a bit further, and maybe this is something we can explore. I don't know what you have planned, but it's also, I would suggest something similar.
Absolutely. I think that's, yeah. Please join the format. I was just going to say, there's a lot in there. It's a shopping list. You can read it yourself. But the thing about inclusion and accessibility, which is something that's really important to me, what I wanted to actually flag up in that respect is it isn't just about the equivalent of building wheelchair ramps or making sure that these things are accessible. But inclusion can also mean breaking down silos between domains. That when we have these co-creation experiences, that people who feel like they might not ordinarily fit into that context can be made to feel that they fit into that context. And I think that's a really interesting approach to that as well. Everybody will have something to say about that. Suzanne, you want to come back real quick?
Yeah, maybe. So that also means when we do co-creation, that also means that we are never expert of something. And this is exactly how I feel. I'm not an expert at anything, but at least I can contribute to several things. And it is linked to to your introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to give the put the microphone down and let Matteo take over again.
Okay. So yes, keep your comments and questions, because I mean the idea of this session is actually to share and to have a discussion about co-creation. Just to summarize, To summarize, this is like the special issue which already discussed. This is really, the focus. So maybe when you have, the slides, you can have this. There's also some practicalities. So the submission deadline is 1st of February 2026. The application is August 2026. And in the CIJ website, you find all the, let's say, guidelines to submit to this special issue. You know the guest editor, and if you have questions, of course, Andrew will address those into your own inbox. And now is time for the workshop, which is this. We're going to address a fishbowl format. And if you don't know how it works, I'm going to explain to you right now. And it works also online. So I'm going to switch off the slide, and we're going to have also the possibility for people online to share their ideas on co-creation. The fishbowl is like this. There are 4 chairs here. So you are going to be included right away. And 1 empty chair. Okay, I'm going to bring that right here. And the point is that, people that want to speak, just take a seat, okay? And speak to each other. The people that are, like you, are just, listening, and maybe when they have an idea, they just stand up and go to the empty chair. They don't have to speak right away. Then, in the conversation, they can just take, their turn and say what they have to say. When the people that are already sitting see that 1 chair becomes full, then one of them stands up and leave 1 empty chair. Because she already contributed to the discussion, has nothing more to say at that moment. She can always come back at a later moment and take the empty chair and then say what they want to say. Is that clear? Clear for everybody? Makes sense? Okay? Yes. No, the full is going to be, roughly 50 minutes, 45 minutes. The session ends at 3:30. But if you have, your own comments, you can speak, as long as, the people don't throw objects at you. People remote, you have 1 seat, which is here, which means the screen. So if you want to speak, just switch on your camera and then, speak. If somebody else online wants to speak, just switch on the camera, and then the person that has the camera on, just switch it off so that we have the full screen for the people who want to speak. Is that clear for the people online?
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to take a seat here as a moderator, and then we're going to start. Are you okay? Yes, I'm going to bring the right chair, and I'm going to also sit on it. We have some more elements, some more microphones. People that want to take a seat. Yes, amazing. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna switch off this. Claudio.
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah,
Hold on 1
I think
second.
I have.
We have. Yeah.
Yes, go on, please.
Do you see us?
Yes, you are a little small in my screen, but I see all of you. Yes.
This is wonderful. Okay. So you want to start while we get set here?
Yes. I just briefly introduce myself and the project I'm working on, because I believe it can be of interest because of the co-creation aspect. Okay, I'm Claudio Calderoni. I'm an architect and based here in Stockholm, originally from Bassano del Grappa. For 3 years, I've been running workshops integrating body, local culture, and nature with over 140 participants through my Icebreakers community. I'm now formalizing this thing into a scalable methodology. I am developing a large feeling model instead of a large language model, but one that processes transformative experiences tied to places. So the idea is to go beyond traditional co-creation limits, not just removing the single author constraint, but creating a living artwork that grows organically. A geographically distributed artistic neural network where AI progressively expands cultural mapping and connects contributions from established artists with experiences of ordinary people. I've been mapped already Bassano del Grappa through universal archetypes, which are threshold, liminality, revelation, incorporation, integrating sites, historical, cultural heritage with contemporary somatic practices. I have a functioning app, and I've been publishing on this for over a year. Now I want to scale, involve major contemporary artists as initial neurons across various locations, and let the work evolve through collective participation, with AI as an infrastructure. It's co-creation that transcends spatial and temporal boundaries. The work doesn't exist, but continuously becomes. Situated methodology, cross-domain approach, strong ethical dimension around territorial belonging. So my question is, if you see this as a possible methods paper for the special issue, or would you recommend another format?
That's an amazing contribution. Also because at CERN, there is an incredible network of artists that are coming because they are fascinated by representing what is impossible to see, and by representing the high energy that gives creation to matter. So I think it could be also one of the places that you could map, and they could benefit from your methodology. And there is really artist in residence program, but also a lot of really a global network of people that have a locus of interaction, which is really interesting. And I believe that also the space is basic for co-creation, like where that happens.
Interesting.
Grazie, Claudio.
You're welcome. Hi, Michela. long no see.
Oh, no.
All right, I'll leave the chair for somebody else. If you don't have other questions, of course.
Great. We'll talk about it more, obviously, Claudio.
Sure, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, do you want to share your co-creation story?
Yeah, so I work on Graphia, and most people in the room may or may not know that I work with Stefano De Paoli. who's very big with AI, and we've been using AI. I don't want to make this all about AI in innovative sort of co-creation ways, which are traditionally more human-based analysis. So we've done thematic analysis on interview transcripts with AI, but I think it was Andrew that touched on the fact that when we approach co-creation, there's very much a human in the loop at every single stage, and we're not sort of handing a task or an analysis or any sort of job over to AI and sitting back and letting it do its thing. Especially for us as researchers, we want to know what's going on. I don't hand anything over to a black box and understand what's happening. So we do have this collaborative relationship with AI, and I think as well in co-creation of any kind, you have to be like a trailbreaker and a trailblazer, I should say, and just go for it, because there will be naysayers, there will be people that don't necessarily in the beginning understand or become on board, and it's your job to sort of do it anyway and not be afraid to step outside your research field, step outside your area, and put together collaborations that are maybe innovative and new and show people that it can work. That's how we come out.
I think it's very important, interesting. Is there somebody in the room that has, some interesting story of co-creation with AI, or has some ideas on how we could improve that? Because as of now, it's kind of, maybe just limited by the environment of the, yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay, just a short story. I think a couple of years ago, I made a workshop for startups, technological startups, and it was a mixture of master student science and then PhD students in science, like really hard tech science. And they had like a task to create, like first product, and then we also tried to play a bit with communication and marketing. And then, then tech guys start to approach, this creative side. They just, prompt chat like directly. But when we try to apply some, more classical marketing framework, talking about like values, some emotions, this thing, it was really interesting how these people try to feed AI with their very much cultural and personal stuff and what kind of results they got at the end. So it was like part of prompt, but part of really ask like tech guys for non-tech prompts. And then this kind of weird co-creation, like how it went, it was really like weird for themselves. But for me, it's really when we try to change our like formal creative patterns to something else, not to create like with ChatGPT as we used to, like sending prompts, but try something different. Then it gives a very interesting delta. And we just cannot say that, okay, you should do that or this, but just it's about conscious, sorry for this word, conscious exploration. Because if you add something different, because you have some kind of objective for that, then you get really different results. And then, then this tech team got something creative. They can treat it as their own, but it's just surprise. It was a big surprise for them. Oh, okay, this is mine, but this is so weird, but this is I create that, wow. So this kind of, so I just wanted to share, because for me it was also unusual, because like marketing people, creative people, they get used to that. But if you apply this methodology to people who are not used to that, you can get something interesting, like for everybody. That's it.
Thank you. No, you can stay. You can stay until somebody joins, so that we can leave. I also have a question with you. Like, what I sense once, I was also publishing in a paper that a colleague of mine wrote on CIJ. It's that the interaction with AI is really discipline based. He was having like a large workshop like yours, and had designers, engineers, and human and social science people. And for example, designer really were against starting with AI. Engineers were like, yeah, go there directly and ask them, what should I do here? But then designer were like, no, if I do this, then my brain is going to be fixated into this kind of small pot of things that AI is giving me, and I want to first, have like some creative perspective, and then maybe feed those to AI. Have you sensed this kind of different approaches?
So not really, actually. And what I can say is that I don't feel really comfortable with the association of co-creation with an AI. For me, but maybe it's my view of co-creation, but we need to have serendipity. And I'm not sure AI can provide a kind of serendipity, actually, because it provides what you expect, even if it's said better, if it's said quicker, and so on. But it's not really thinking out of the box, because it's already part of the box. So I feel always, I mean, I don't use AI to find ideas, but much more to express what I want to say more quickly. So maybe for me the co-creation should really stay amongst humans, except if we consider that serendipity with AI can come thanks to the hallucination of AI. Then it can create it can create something new, but then it comes from a mistake. So which is also the way research is made, because a lot of new discovery actually comes from mistake at the beginning. So this is how we can maybe see co-creation, but yeah, a bit differently.
May I just come back on that really very quickly? I absolutely agree with you if you're asking an AI questions. What I do, and this sort of flips it around a bit, is to get the AI to ask me questions. And they are often questions that I wouldn't have thought of, and it's me that comes up with the serendipity and the interesting answers to questions that I might not have asked myself. So in that respect, I think there is the opportunity, or at least I feel like it's co-creation more than simply issuing instructions. It's more prompts from the machine to me than the other way around, which is just another way of thinking about it.
But then it's the Socratic method, where you ask to yourself a question. So it's the AI questioning yourself, as you can do as well, just with the question and answer feedback, where you, as a psychoanalyst and this type of thing. So I agree, but with a very specific process, in my view.
If I can add to that, so you have there two aspects. One aspect is that actually I a bit disagree that with the AI, let's say, different kind of tools, you are not creating new things for you, new things, because you have limited capacity and you go against collective knowledge, okay? And basically, it is impossible that okay, you can compare your creativity with this complex, let's say, collection from one hand. From other hand, there is one point. If you look at the latest publications, all are saying that it is AI that is starting programming people now. So basically, we using AI are starting to be programmed. And this will go, the more we will be dependent using daily, different LLMs, etc., the more programmed we will be, because the responses we are getting somehow are focusing us on one way or another, okay? And more you would be programmed. And that's, if you look at the latest kind of ethical or this kind of publications, they're going strictly into this direction.
Can I sort of pick up as well on everything that's been said? I was just interested in the perspective of sometimes I look to collaborate or co-create with AI because it's not as creative or it's not as biased. Like all as human beings, as researchers, when we do psychology research and thematic analysis, I come at it from my perspective and I bring with that implicit biases that I'm probably not even aware of. So when I then co-create sort of to identify themes in data or to look at coding with AI, it can remove that. And sometimes it is its sort of structured nature that can bring out differences again in the analysis of the outcomes of that then makes it really interesting to sort of evaluate research. Again, it's not so much the creation side, but the sort of more analytical objectives. Can you use it that way as well?
Yeah, but the fact is that means the co-creation process, as we are starting to describe it, is mainly between yourself and a tool. So I quite disagree with the fact that we have more limited capacities than the AI, because of course they can calculate and so on much more quickly. That's obvious, but they are programmed as well, you know. So even if they started to program us, the fact is that at the beginning they have been created by human, and it's still the case, and they are maintained by human. And the issue is that if we start working all together on co-creation between one human and the machine, we forget the added value of being all together. And this is where I see we have much more imagination all together as human rather than using the machine, at least in my view. But I see you disagree.
Can I chip in? Thank you. Psychologist by profession, working in engineering. So my interest is also in collaborative intelligence, and I think it depends also how we look at co-creation, and do we just then formally tie it to something being creative. I wanted to share an example. I mean, there are some examples that, by the way, say that there's, well, a human plus a machine, but there's also human, machine, and process. So there are examples where, you know, when you're building a process, it's actually better than a really strong machine. So there are ways how we can go about that. But the interesting example I have, lately we've noticed that people have been starting to use AI in different ways. Obviously, there are some bad ways in which, you know, these big companies are kind of promoting even children to interact with AI, which is currently highly, well, risky, I would say, in the best sense of that word. But also people, grown-up adults, have started using AI in different ways. For example, building boyfriends and girlfriends who are obviously virtual. One good example I've actually heard is that people have created themselves. So what they do, they prompt AI to kind of act and behave as much as they can as you. And then what they do is they do mirroring. So there's this concept of mirroring in psychotherapy that usually helps you process things. And that's usually where the therapist comes in. He's not going to solve your problem. He's going to reflect on what you're saying, just to kind of make it clear for you what you are saying and experiencing, so that you can reflect on that and kind of assimilate. So what the AI actually does is basically gives you back that reflection. And I think on some sense, it's good, because I think it makes, at least at some level of the process, I don't think AI can obviously be a therapist. I'm not suggesting that. But on some level, the same way it helps us be quicker, faster, you know, have better processing power when it comes to big data and so on. I think on some level, it can also help us on a day-to-day activity to kind of mirror and give us back, okay, so what you're saying is this, is that correct? So I think there are some ways, maybe it's not like purely creative, but I like this process of it kind of giving me back feedback of what's happening. I still have to do my own process with emotions, with, you know, cognition, everything that has to happen. But I think it can be useful in that way. Obviously, it's not going to mimic human. I have to understand it's not a human, but nevertheless, I think there are some ways in which it can actually be helpful. I don't know if I would specifically call that co-creation, but on some level, I think it really is.
So just, yeah, no. I'm not, just to be very clear, because maybe I express myself a bit wrongly. I'm not at all against AI, and I'm using LLM quite often. What surprised me right now is that we started the discussion already by addressing co-creation between human and machine. So we completely missed and didn't address the question of co-creation between ourselves. So I'm not saying it's not, you know, but before maybe addressing the question of co-creation between human and machine, how do we proceed, and what are the kind of methodology we can use? And several exist. So it's more the point I would like to make here. So,
but I think it's because it is already impossible. Because you said you are using LLMs. So while you are preparing for discussion, most probably you also had some interaction. So you are coming with not only your knowledge, but collective knowledge is not one machine. It's collective knowledge, I would say.
Yeah, but collective knowledge gathered from everyone.
Yes.
Not from machine.
Yeah, but
you know, I haven't prepared a discussion before with an AI. I just it's based off
maybe not this time.
No, of course, yeah, sure, but it's also based on my own experience, on yeah, just on different experiences. And this is maybe what we lack here, that this is where we have stories, actually, that machine cannot tell in the same way, because when we remind history or experiences, we remind not only the fact and the conclusion and the success or not, we remind also the emotions and so a lot of things that we learned without knowing that we learned that. And I'm not sure we have the same, I'm pretty sure actually it cannot work like that with AI. But maybe I should also leave the seat.
Oh, it's okay. Oh, goodness.
Can I
can't
just
have-
say
can't
from
do
my
it too.
perspective, I only
Two of them.
sort of came in and mentioned AI because that is currently what I'm working on, specifically in Graphia, so it's kind of hard for me to talk about it and not mention AI. It wasn't like me leading the conversation, and I massively believe in co-creation between students. It was just, that is what I'm here sort of doing and what we've been doing in Graphia.
Let's join up this idea that we can co-create with each other, and we create these intermediary spaces that are not absolutely precise, and somewhere in this space there are points that the other person can latch onto. Now that's, I think, something to consider in technology prototyping, because one of the biggest problems we've had, and I can tell you from having worked past sort of 20 years with music data and things like that, if you try to resonate with people who are trying to search for something, there are instances, and particularly now the way that we use technology, where we ask a specific question: how many people are in X, whatever, and then there's a number, right? So, and you hope that this is an accurate answer. There are those types of questions. They're very precise questions. We know that these tools can give us those. But if you actually are trying to get the gist of a piece of research, if it's a good piece of research, it's multifaceted. It doesn't just have the data that underpins it. It actually has more than that. Even if you're measuring it with 80% accuracy, there is still this wonderful 20% of the semantic gap that allows you to ask more questions. Now, us as researchers, I think, get excited by that part. What I'm trying to drive at is that if we look at the fuzzy spaces in the results, how do you create a fuzzy space that allows you to dabble in this liminal space in between, where you can identify something that's meaningful to you? And the reason why we discovered that is because lots of people, when they were trying to infer how people search for music, and music being one of those kind of really interesting areas because it's very difficult to describe, and you can do feature extraction, you can train systems. We started to learn that we can teach a system from feature extraction and data creation to allow people to find their Sunday morning playlist, whatever that means. You tell me what that means for you, right? And we can do it by extracting data from features and from machine learning. So let's just not call everything AI these days, right? But machine learning, effectively nudging the system to understand what your brain perceives as your Sunday morning playlist. What it returns then is not the precise thing that you would otherwise, your search engine would say, give me the artist so-and-so, that whatever. No, that's not what you're looking for. Actually, it's not what you're looking for. What it returns is the fuzzy space where you might discover some things that you actually really like and some maybe you like a bit less, but it's sort of meandering within these sort of fuzzy parameters of what is you on a Sunday morning. That's really interesting. As a researcher, if a system, I'm going to give the tech guys now absolute headache. If you as a tech guy can actually work on a system that gives the researcher a bit of a fuzzy area where it's not just their ultimate focus of, like how they you tell every PhD student, you must focus. You're asking too big a question. If you give them that set of parameters that allows them to meander a little bit around their domain and their area, they will start to come back with tons of research questions. And that's where your kind of inspiration and creativity starts to come into it. And that's also what happens between us if we work together as people from different domains. I'm sorry I've been too long, so I'll pass it on to who's going to jump in. Paulina, oh, how nice to see you. Paulina, you're going to join this project, aren't you? Because we already talked about it. Paulina's, okay, Paulina, jump in.
Okay, can you hear me at all?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm here like on the road, so it's all a little bit. Anyway, so hello, Michaela, nice to see you as well. I'm also on the music side, and I'm kind of happen to be on both sides. I'm on the one hand a musician and an ethnomusicologist, and I'm also kind of a tech guy, you would say, a tech woman. And I was really interested to hear your thoughts on co-creation, and I also have a question. So I'll tell you very quickly what I'm trying to do and try to open it up to others, maybe. So I lead vocal ensembles, so traditional polyphonic vocal ensembles from Eastern Europe with real singers. And I've done field research in that area, and what I would like to create is a kind of a vocal agent that can participate in the ensemble singing. And this is, in this case, it's a very kind of a highly regulated activity, which is very synchronized. And the singers in the ensemble, so these ensembles are not conducted. So the singers synchronize, coordinate in a way which is negotiated during the singing specifically, and also during the time that the singers have been singing together for like previously. So they know how the songs go, they know how different people work, they know what the timbres are, how they can find the way together. So I wonder how I can build, whether I can build a system that can replicate this. So it's, and then I would like to use the system to help us to maintain polyphonic vocal traditions that are waning for various reasons because of war or displacement or whatever is happening. So we know that these traditions, many of these traditions are endangered. And there are many situations where we are short of singers or for various reasons, for teaching, where we might benefit from such system. And we have no idea how such a system would affect the practice. So in this case, what I've seen in the music domain is that this paradigm has not been much explored because it's just too difficult. So mostly people work with systems in some kind of either question and answer situation where, for example, you as a musician, you give a cue and then the system replies, or the other way around. Or there is some kind of leadership and following. So you as a musician, you lead and then the system follows you. But this situation of group co-creation is not, I don't see anyone doing this. So my question, I guess, to everyone is, do you see such systems in other areas than music? So are people working on this kind of human group creativity, and then allowing the automated systems to join in this and to model this kind of synchronized group creativity?
Wow. Okay, any examples?
Yeah, I have one actually. I have one. It's writing a book. There have been 2 or 3 books these last months that have been published and that have been co-written between 2 authors, 2 human authors, and LLM in order to address this type of question. So I think this type of the typical co-creation process that you described is also can be seen also in writing books. Which is maybe why it's very close to music, because in the same in both cases it's related to an artistic process, maybe more than industrial or tech process. But I don't know what you think about it.
Maybe we can get some links for you, Paulina, to look into this process and see if you can infer some sort of parallels. But certainly it's an experiment that we should actually set up at some point. Definitely. And we hope to drag Paulina into this project because she's actually also an ontologist. And she's worked with BBC R&D and all sorts of people. And I also see that Stene is waiting to speak. Stene.
Yes, hello. A comment more on what you can call the co-innovation when it comes to LLMs and such. In a meeting with the New Club of Paris, I brought forward the thinking of maybe combining something called challenge management and what you can call context-centric digital universities or research centers. The level of thinking here is that you should be able to show or allow the challenge owners to, in a formalized and in a very structured way, describe the challenges that they see within their challenge areas like urban planning or architecture or environmental issues in such a way that the solution providers and the solution developers and researchers on a time perspective of 15 to 20 years can actually start to create results. And then by that material, more or less, you could then create something called digital research centers and such that are centered upon specific areas, picking the best brains from wherever they are. And I think that these two projects here should form the basis for that very approach, by also including not only the research results, but also very good documentation of the involved researchers. Because then in such a way that they can be searchable by LLMs and graph, for instance, because that will of necessity be the search mechanisms to find them and find research materials as well. So that is, in a sense, what I think one could evaluate an approach of, we can call the innovative processes that you are discussing now, but in a very much more concrete form, by allowing people to find each other, specify the challenges and what they are expected to solve, and then build up the what we can call proper collaborative systems between the challenge owners and the solution developers. Thank you.
Thank you, Stena. Is Marcin around? Because I mean, he's doing so much work with the DIH community, and he might have just popped out. He was here a minute ago. Because I was just wondering if they do any mission-driven things where they try and combine all the different kind of domains from the DIH, but he's not here to answer. So who would like to jump in next? I'm not here to kind of guide people.
No, it's okay. I have a story that I wanted to share because there was one issue about, collaboration between people, okay? And, like everybody of you probably are approached by weird people in your city. That happened to me like last year, where actually 3 years ago, where the director of the mental health department approached me saying, I have a big challenge. I want to improve the well-being of our city, and I want to do it together with all the citizens. I was like, okay, so 500,000 people co-creating about the future well-being of the city, and the answer was yes. I want everybody to be part of this challenge. So I was like really thinking, how can I include 500,000 people into a giant and massive co-creation challenge? And we started with a snowball effect, and 4 years later, right now as we speak, there are, citizens around, the city of Bologna that are discussing about, mental health and well-being, and going in all the places of the town. There are currently 40 tables of discussion, and then they will be reported into the International Mental Health Day, which is the 10th of October. And I wanted to poke you and understand about you if you had ideas on how we could really involve in the co-creation effort multiple people, so have like this kind of inclusive effect, because sometimes co-creation becomes part of a cell of few people thinking about what they want to do together, but maybe there are challenges that requires everybody to join forces to find solution. Do you have something like that? Do you have ideas? Yeah.
Thank you. I work with Christo, Aberty, and Diane, and we work with AI. But I'm also an artist, so we're talking about different identities. I work in the community in Scotland where I live, and I host art workshops for well-being, and I present to people who turn up for a workshop as an artist, but I also tell people that I'm a scientist, and first of all, they are shocked that I use both a scientific mind and an artistic mind, but even that in itself gives permission to people to feel they can think outside of a personality, an identity. They can have permission to have emotions. And quite often I talk about a previous research project on cybersecurity. I worked on to understand safety and online harm. We talked about risk playgrounds and creating privacy enhancing technologies to allow people offline. So some things are not meant to be put into words. You know, we have these spaces where emotions can block expression. So I believe that when I lead an art workshop, I open up the liminal space, the middle way, speaking as a person who prefers Buddhist philosophy. So this middle space is potent, it's provocative, it's expressive, it's human, and it gives permission for emotion. So just wanted to add, when you were talking about mental health, I feel that there's a lot of fluidity between how we can, when you think about Bruno Latour's actor network theory, we can start to blend this co-creative space between actor, network, emotion. It seems very furtive and virile, for want of a better word. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's not an example that I had as an experience personally, but I know that there have been a lot of experiences around community living labs that can act not only not only at a local but also at an international level, where you gather. So community living lab is really it's the activity to gather very different types of people. So we can be researchers, citizens, public industry, public institution, not public industries, industry and public institution. So different types of people all together to address the same type of issue. And at the level of a city or even a country or even global one, you can set up several community living labs addressing the same type of question, but with different types of value or methods depending on their cultural habits and language and so on. And linking all these community living labs can be a kind of part of an answer of the question you ask. So that's for my feedback. And maybe one just provocative question or remark. It's very interesting to see that when we are discussing co-creation, 90% of the speakers are women and not men, which is not always the case. So I'm just wondering why. Is co-creation a female thing? I would like to. No, I'm just provocative, but it's interesting.
I'm going to challenge the tech guys to say, okay, can we actually look at how to do the results as a sort of with some kind of a flattening of Euclidean distance, so we can actually say, okay, how about we do open answer. So there's a precise answer, which is actually the difficult part, and guys always go for that. They're really, really into this. It's got to be that bit, that sort of exact answer. But you go like, well, let's try and expand it with Euclidean distance. Like, how far from this would you like to search? It's like you bit like when you are searching something on the map and they say, do you want 20 kilometers? You want 10 kilometers? You want 5? I mean, basically just collapse the Euclidean distance and just go, how far around your topic would you like to know what's happening? And I think that as a researcher, I think it'd just be gold. Because I mean, this is what we had the experience with, as I say, something as intangible as music was basically Pandora was diabolical because they were so precise and they were saying, you know what you listen to when you drive to work, and you go, no, but I don't want to listen to that, go away, you know, this kind of thing. So as a researcher, it's like, we know what you're researching, it's always got to be this, and you go, no, it's not helpful. What you say is, okay, here's the range of what you might be interested in, and how about you kind of like just, you know, you kind of find yourself, is it a bit to the left or to the right or a bit further or whatever. And you can decide, do you want to be very precise? Or do you want to be a bit sort of, but basically it is algorithmically possible to deliver this kind of thing. We've done it before, and I wonder if we could test it on users and see what sort of, whether we can identify some value in this kind of exchange, whether there'll be more interesting research questions or whether people will discover new research directions. Sorry, being provocative to all the tech guys are going, where's my coffee?
Sorry, Andrea, I'll give the mic to you. Now, just briefly to go back to MTF 2018, the question I got for the 3 days lab from everyone was, what do we have to do? And I was like, I have no idea. Like, yeah. And they were shocked. All the engineers in my company were shocked because we put them in a room with a lot of different artists and said, you go. They were like, what do we need to do? Like, whatever you want to do. But you have to tell me. No, I'm not going to tell you. You're going to do it yourself. And they ended up like having 6 or 7 brilliant projects. And ultimately, for me, the best experience was learning that when you put brilliant people in a room, they're ultimately going to build something. You just have to have the faith, which I was a bit skeptical at the beginning as well. Like, how is this going to work? But going back to actually your question, we are now experimenting in education, actually. And we are part of a project with a really small startup, but they're brilliant. Michaela knows them as well. So I'm going to mention what they do. It's basically a platform for kids and teachers alike. And it's free for schools because it's being financed through companies. Basically, what companies do, they bring in their technology and say, I want to give my technology to kids to see what they're going to build with it. The platform enables them to learn about the technology in real time. But the interesting part about co-creation is that it does that for the teachers as well, because majority of teachers, it's STEM-based platform, so they do, again, they learn about AI and different stuff, robotics programming. We've also built in now new courses that are about critical thinking, about communication, about team building, about just general, gender balances and diversity. We are now exploring new mental health programs for kids. But interesting part about collaboration, again, to go back to that, is that kids give feedback in real time. Because the basic kind of thing that we were asking is, isn't it crazy that we're building educational systems and curriculums, but we're not actually asking the kids for whom we are building these systems, but what do you think? So we asked them, is this interesting for you? Is it too hard for you? Is it too easy for you? What do you think? What do we need to change? And they do that in real time. So basically, as kids go through the program, they give their notes, they can put smileys, they can do whatever they want, but they need to give feedback. And I think it's a brilliant way of co-creating using a platform because it's in real time. You can obviously scale. We've now done that in over 300 schools in Croatia. We are building that program now in Brazil and Chile. So basically what will also happen is we're trying to kind of have that cultural moment where kids in Croatia will be able to work with kids and build stuff with kids in South America. We've also connected them to NGOs and said, okay, so whatever you use in technology, it has to solve some kind of real life problem. So you can do it for your school, you can do it for your community, you can, but whatever. And kids bring their ideas. So we're only there to provide the technology and the knowledge and help them do it. They get mentorship from engineers, they can have inspirational talks. Danica Kragic was also one of the speakers. So yeah, I mean, this is a really nice way of how you build community, how you scale community, and especially in a topic that's really difficult. You know, education is really difficult. If you try do it through the system, it's almost impossible. So we're doing kind of bottom up and trying to build, you know, different pathways how kids can learn and how they build communities. And we learn from them about their technology, about their use cases. They build their own support groups. So the idea is also for kids to support other kids if they have problems, for teachers to support other teachers to kind of help them solve their problems. And we've had really, really great examples. And then each year we do a kids tech conference here at the campus. This year we had around 1,200 kids. We bring, yeah, it's really cool. I'll show you the video later. We bring companies, we bring tech companies, we bring startups, we bring universities, and they all show them their latest innovation. They show them what, you know, they can build, what they can work on. They have hands-on experience to try all these things. And also they get to present their own projects and their own solutions and get prizes. So I think it's a nice way kind of how to build this. We started with like just a couple of schools, 30 schools in the beginning, then 50, then, you know, each year, I think for this year, we again have 250 new schools. So ultimately, we want to include all the schools in Croatia, but we'll get there eventually.
Can we get a CERN journal article about this?
We can try. We can definitely try.
Sounds like definitely an article.
I wanted to just mention somebody who has registered, but as I checked, is not currently in the call. There's and this, Diane led me to think of this. There's a fantastic Scottish composer, Anthony Cowie, who is also a PhD researcher, who works with geographically situated music and composition, works very closely with marginalized communities, particularly people with intellectual disabilities. But his PhD research is in the creation of music and sound within science centers, and how it not just communicates the science, but provides a context for understanding, which is kind of a different way of thinking about it. But I just wanted to sort of, I mean, I wanted to open up the conversation, but unfortunately I'm closing it down, but about ways of co-creation with space and within space, and how the location makes a difference to what sorts of creation and co-creation can take place, and who you are with, not just what you co-create together, but the qualities and the personalities of the people, but also the qualities and personalities of the places where you're situated, I think makes a really interesting narrative, I guess, for something like this.
So, if you want to follow up with this question, write an article for the special issue. No, because we discuss a lot with a lot of topics. We discuss about AI, the co-creation with AI, the enable that AI can have with co-creating with humans, the idea that we can have group co-creation, the large co-creation experiments, the role of space, the role of emotions. Like, we had touched a lot of very interesting topics which are core to the special issue, and we would like to, keep the conversation, running. So fuel these ideas and then, make concrete proposal for the special issue. Article is quite short, 10 pages, 8 pages, so something quite manageable, and get to the core of most of the work that you're doing. I think it's a very interesting prerequisite for making an article for this special issue. I have to say that I regret that I have to stop this, but it's 3:30, and that's where we need to head to the next session. So a round of applause for the people that spoke, and also for the people that listen. Like this session, it's inclusive also for this, because you don't have to speak, you don't have to be part of people that are getting out there, but you're still part of the of the co-creation session. Because also, listening is a very important element when you co-create, not only speaking. Thank you, and I'll see you.
And thank you, Matteo. Round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you, Matteo. Really appreciate it.